Welcome to the local campaign here on Rogers TV. We thank you so much for joining us today. Our focus on the riding of Nepean. Before I introduce you to our candidates, I'll go over the format as it differs from previous formats where we would have a debate, but this year we are doing it in a virtual format. So we're doing a question and answer session with each of our candidates. It will go as follows. Each candidate will have an opportunity to have an opening statement, which will be 60 seconds long, followed by a number of questions. They will have 60 seconds to answer those questions, and then a closing statement. Again, 60 seconds for each candidate for those closing statements. It is now time to introduce our candidates, and I will do so in alphabetical order. First up is Brian Double of the NDP, Kaitlyn Tremblay of the Green Party, and Tyler Watt of the Liberal Party. We will begin with our opening statements, and we will do that in alphabetical order. A reminder that each of our candidates has 60 seconds. Starting with Brian Double of the NDP. You have 60 seconds.
Hi, I'm Brian Double. I'm the NDP candidate for Nepean. I would like to acknowledge that I'm joining you from my home in Barrhaven, which is on unceded Algonquin territory. Nepeanites have been telling me that they are concerned about the cost of living. In order to address that, I will take the following actions. I will make the cost of housing affordable. I will ensure that healthcare is paid for with an OHIP card and not a credit card. And I will ensure the implementation of the $10 a day childcare, and I'll assure that it is done quickly and effectively. I've been a public servant for the past 20 years, and I've accomplished amazing things with the team. I am confident that as your representative at Queen's Park, I can accomplish positive change for Nepean residents. Thank you.
Kaitlyn Tremblay of the Green Party, you have 60 seconds for your opening statement.
Thank you, Derek. Humans are known for being resistant to change, but are infamous for being one of the most adaptable beings on the planet. Change is this world's only constant, and the best we can do is prepare accordingly for best outcomes. Change is often an opportunity, a chance to do better or to be better. We have the power right now to make choices that will affect the outcome of the change we will inevitably see in our lives and the lives for future generations. We have the power now to make choices that put people and planet first, whether that be investing in mental and preventative health care, investing in education and skill building for the jobs of tomorrow, or investing in our forests and our waterways now so that future generations may also be able to experience this land's many gifts. These are the things that my party offers. These are the things that I offer. We are offering to be your rock through the storm because we understand that change is coming, regardless. Let's choose together how and whether this change will be for the betterment or the detriment of us all.
Tyler Watt of the Liberal Party, it is time for your opening statement. You have 60 seconds.
Good afternoon, everyone. Bon après-midi tout le monde. My name is Tyler Watt. I'm a registered nurse working here in Nepean and the Ontario Liberal Party candidate for our riding in the upcoming provincial election. Je m'appelle Tyler Watt. Je suis une infirmière autorisée qui travaille ici à Nepean et la candidate pour le Parti libéral de l'Ontario pour Nepean. I got involved in politics because after Doug Ford was elected in 2018, the amount of cuts and harmful policies that they were implementing were detrimental not only to my life as a student and then a nurse, but to my patients and also directly impacted my community. Every day I get to make a positive difference for my patients and their families at the bedside, and I want to take that step to the next level for Nepean at the legislature. As nurses, we are taught to be advocates for our patients, their families, and our communities, and that is exactly what I will do for Nepean as their next MPP.
First question. Cost of living is perhaps the biggest issue for many in this election. What would you do to help people afford their day-to-day expenses? Brian Double of the NDP, you have 60 seconds.
That is exactly what I'm hearing from Nepeanites, that the cost of living is extremely high and they're very concerned. So there's 3, perhaps 4 areas that I'll focus on actually. So making that cost of housing affordable. So there are a few actions that I can take under there, including a loan for first-time home buyers. Also ensuring that healthcare, dental care, mental health, pharmacare is paid for with an OHIP card, not a credit card. And finally, that the childcare plan is implemented quickly and effectively. I am confident with these investments that we can reduce the cost of living for people in Nepean.
Same question, Kaitlyn Tremblay of the Green Party.
Yes, thank you, Derek. For one, we're looking at the housing crisis. Affordability starts with one's health, starts with one's ability to take care of and meet one's basic needs. That includes groceries, that includes housing, that includes our healthcare system. Right now, the Green Party is considering different ways to make healthcare, groceries, mitigate inflation, and have housing be more affordable. For example, the Green Party is looking at putting a 20% tax on domestic home buyers. And what that means is that for people who are owning 3, 4, 5 properties, they would have to pay a tax to allow first-time home buyers and just Ontarians across the board a chance to access the housing market, as well as trying to mitigate some of the costs of rising inflation right now.
Same question. Cost of living is perhaps the biggest issue for many in this election. What will you do to help people afford their day-to-day expenses? Tyler Watt of the Liberal Party, you have 60 seconds.
So cost of living and affordability is hands down the number one thing that I hear at the door right now when I'm out knocking on doors and making phone calls. The Ontario Liberals have a balanced, progressive, and fully costed plan to help with the rising costs. We need to do things now, both in the short term and the long term, not just rebate sticker gimmicks that we're seeing right now from the Ford government. We're going to do things like slashing all public transit fares across the province to $1 per ride. We will remove the HST off of prepared foods under $20. We're also going to make sure that we get the childcare deal in. So $10 per day childcare deal for all families by September 2022. We will also reimburse families for the months that Premier Ford wasted playing politics, not making the childcare deal with the feds, and get reimbursed families up to $2,750 per child.
Next question. Funding for Ontario's public school system is always a priority issue for families with school-aged children. What do you feel is necessary to make sure Ontario public schools are of the highest quality in both education and infrastructure? Kaitlyn Tremblay of the Green Party, you have 60 seconds.
Thank you. Our education and our healthcare systems are severely underfunded. Right now, we're experiencing massive decreases in the amount of staff and the amount of teachers across the board. Right now, the Green Party is looking at ways to increase funding to those teachers so that they are not underpaid, so that they are not understaffed, so that they are able to be present and be there for your children to give them the best care possible. This also applies to health and safety standards in schools, listening to teachers and support staff when they ask for things, when they're screaming from the rooftops about what it is that they need in their classrooms to be able to do their jobs and do their jobs right. As well, we need to look at the way that we're teaching in our schools. The Green Party itself and myself support anti-racist class discussions and teachings in the schoolroom because that's where we start.
Same question, Tyler Watt from the Liberal Party.
We are so lucky to have a public education system. I was brought up in it right here in Barrhaven, and we really need to make those much needed investments so we can ensure a high quality education environment for our students and a safe environment for the students and the education workers as well. I'm proud that the Ontario Liberals and myself will end and cancel Doug Ford's Highway 413, which has a $10 billion price tag to it. We're going to shift all of that money right into education so we can get rid of the school repair backlog, so we can build new schools, so we can hire more teachers and appropriate support staff, so we can reduce and cap class sizes at 20 students. This will also ensure physical distancing in class. We're still in a pandemic. These are all things that we need to do to invest and ensure that our students are receiving the highest quality of education that they can have.
Same question. Funding for Ontario's public school system is always a priority issue for families with school-aged children. What do you feel is necessary to make sure Ontario public schools are of the highest quality in both education and infrastructure? Brian Double of the NDP, you have 60 seconds.
Thanks for that question. I recently went back to school, took an Introduction to Macroeconomics course. In that course, we learned that for every year of additional schooling, a person's wage goes up 10%. So investing in education is really investing in the future. And that's why I intend to support investments into education. Some of the areas that I think are important is hiring teachers and educational assistants. We plan to hire 20,000 of them. We also think that smaller classrooms are important, so I support that. We also, you talked about infrastructure, so repairing schools is extremely important. But I also want to touch on one other thing, which is implementing the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's call to action. I think it is really important that we have an Indigenous curriculum that implements Indigenous experiences and histories.
Next question. Climate change is an important issue for many. How would you suggest the province go about cutting greenhouse gas emissions? Tyler Watt of the Liberal Party, you have 60 seconds.
Climate change, the climate crisis is a huge problem. I wish that our governments took the same approach, the same urgency approach to dealing with climate change the way that we did with COVID in the beginning. The Ontario Liberal Party have a phenomenal plan that's going to address that. We're going to cut greenhouse gas emissions by 50% below the 2005 levels by 2030. We're also going to ensure that our biggest polluters meet our 50% reduction targets. We're going to expand the Greenbelt and protected lands, create 25,000 new green energy jobs, transition to a fully clean electric supply, ban new natural gas plants, and provide grants and interest-free loans to retrofit homes and buildings. So we need to help people become more green. We can't just put the onus and responsibility onto people. Another thing, we will be bringing back the electric vehicle incentive rebate to help people get electric vehicles.
Same question, Brian Double of the NDP.
Thank you so much for that question. I am extremely passionate about this, and I think it's really important that we take aggressive actions to make sure that we deal with climate change. I think one really important area is with the cost of gas. It really makes sense to move those electric vehicles. So I think that supports for private ownership of electric vehicles makes a lot of sense. I think we do need to continue work with a cost on carbon pollution. I'm extremely supportive of that. I think another piece is investing in public transit. So the NDP platform has providing 50% of the cost of public transit back to the municipalities, and I think that is really important and really relevant to people in Nepean.
Same question to Kaitlyn Tremblay of the Green Party. Climate change is an important issue for many. How would you suggest the province go about cutting greenhouse gas emissions?
Thank you. The first way that we do that is recognizing that change is happening. Climate change, change in what our economy needs, what our healthcare system needs, what our communities need. The Green Party has always been the party of climate change. This is something that we have been talking about for years and years. Right now, Ontario and Canada itself is in a great position to be able to start to mitigate the effects of climate change and possibly even stop it in its tracks. We're looking to be at a real net zero by 2045, double the green space in Ontario and the Greenbelt, stop Highway 413, as well as create an industry based around the new climate economy. It's a $3 trillion economy, one that is worth investing in, because not only does it cut our carbon costs, it provides jobs for Ontarians, and it provides better health for Ontarians as well.
Next question. Ontario desperately needs more skilled tradespeople. How will you help attract and encourage more people to consider a career in the skilled trades? Brian Double of the NDP, you have 60 seconds to answer.
Fantastic. I think that's a great point. We need really good jobs. So I think one area of great jobs that we would support relates to the last question on climate change. It's in clean energy. It's a growing sector, and it's an area that we can invest in to ensure that there are skilled trades in the jobs of the future. I think that's really important. I think, and then going back to curriculum, I think it's important for in high school to have classes like shop. I really benefited from my woodworking and my metalworking courses. I really enjoyed those. I think those are important to continue to have. Um, I think also investing in workers to ensure that they have the supports they needed, protected by unions, and the education they need.
Kaitlyn Tremblay of the Green Party, same question.
Yes, that goes back into the new climate economy. Right now, we can start to invest in Ontarians, invest in their education, invest in their skill building, move them into jobs that are going to be available for the next many decades. Unfortunately, right now, our energy sector is one that is not sustainable. We're seeing that with the rise in gas prices, the volatility of oil. We're seeing it in our forests and our waterways. We're seeing it in our own children's lives and their health and well-being. We can create thousands of jobs through retrofitting buildings, manufacturing electric vehicles, creating low carbon products and tech, and the Green Party wants to invest in Ontarians. They want to invest in these jobs and invest in pushing forward this new climate economy. It's an industry that has an average job salary of $90,000 a year, and it will be of great benefit to us all.
Same question to Tyler Watt of the Liberal Party. Ontario desperately needs more skilled tradespeople. How will you help attract and encourage more people to consider a career in the skilled trades?
We definitely need more help and investments in that. That's why the Ontario Liberal Party have policies in our platform that is fully costed, that is going to help and encourage people to access those skilled trades. We're in a different world right now in 2022. It's not just go to university and graduate with your undergrad and you are handed a career at that point. There's so much more opportunity out there, particularly with skilled trades. So we really want to make sure that we are emphasizing that we are helping people access that education, providing support through post-secondary, reversing the cuts to OSAP that was made under the four Conservatives. We will also be doubling the Ontario Student Assistance Program so we can help make sure that people are fully funded and financially secure while they are attending a post-secondary and skilled trades.
Next question. Our healthcare system buckled during the pandemic. Considering that healthcare is by far the largest provincial expenditure, how can it be fixed without raising taxes substantially? Kaitlyn Tremblay of the Green Party, you have 60 seconds.
Healthcare. Healthcare is something that I am very passionate about, not only in preventative care, but in mental health care and aging in place care, recognizing the need that we have to make our healthcare system more holistic. Unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of trends in this government right now towards healthcare that are pushing nurses out of our public institutions and into private institutions, pushing our private support workers or our personal support workers into the private sector. We can have a universal healthcare system that is functional and that works for every Ontarian. We can and will, if elected, increase ODSP. We're planning on doubling this. We're planning on covering mental health under OHIP, as well as dental, pharmacare. This is the Ontario that we're fighting for.
Tyler Watt of the Liberal Party, again, same question.
So as I mentioned, I am a registered nurse. I've been working on the front lines during this pandemic. And we can't keep just slapping Band-Aid funding increases on hospitals, increasing hospital beds, and assume that the problem is going to take care of itself. We need to take an upstream thinking approach with how we deal with our healthcare system, as we spend the most money of our taxes through healthcare. So by making those major and much needed investments into the community, into home care, into public health, bringing healthcare to people, making sure that people have access to family doctors and nurse practitioners within 24 hours. These type of investments and policies and priorities are going to alleviate a lot of the pressure that we are seeing on hospitals. These are the things that we need to do to actually address these systemic issues that we see in our healthcare system so we can alleviate that pressure and the amount of money that we are now spending at the hospitals.
Same question to Brian Double of the NDP. Our healthcare system buckled during the pandemic. Considering that healthcare is by far the largest provincial expenditure, how can it be fixed without raising taxes substantially?
Thank you for that. Yes, I think it is sadly the pandemic which showed that cuts from successive governments can have really deadly results. 12,000 Ontarians died in the pandemic, including 4,000 in long-term care. So investing and not cutting is the way we want to move forward. Importantly, respect is not just saying thank you and calling someone a hero, but it means paying people wages that pays the bills. So we plan on repealing Bill 124, ensuring healthcare workers can bargain collectively and get paid for what they're actually doing. We would also, I think, importantly, get rid of that surgical backlog that is caused by the pandemic. Overall, it just means an NDP government would invest rather than cut in this area.
Next question. The Ottawa region has had its fair share of difficulties with their public transit master plan, specifically the LRT. Regardless of what comes out of the provincial inquiry, will you help ensure residents get a system they can rely on? Tyler Watt of the Liberal Party, you have 60 seconds to answer.
Absolutely. The Ontario Liberals and myself want to work with municipalities and empower them. I want to work with every level of government to make sure that we are able to do the most and the best that we can for our communities and ridings. So the Ontario Liberals have committed to fully funding the Phase 3 of the LRT, which is going to impact my riding of Nepean and Barrhaven. We want to learn from past mistakes, which is why I think the inquiry is important, and see what we can do better, what we can change, and what we can do moving forward. It's important that we keep these conversations going and that we work as an ally to our municipal counterparts and not be working against them.
Brian Double of the NDP, same question.
Fantastic. I really relate to this one. Just between you and I only got my driver's license when I turned 29 years old. I'm no longer 29 years old, but it meant that I used the OC Transpo every day, all the time. I was always near a bus station and traveled using public transit. So I'm really invested in public transit, and my children and my family is as well. As I mentioned in previous answer, the NDP does plan to return up to 50% of the cost of running the transit back to municipalities. That'll ensure that the LRT and the other aspects of OC Transpo are much more effective and really, an important way of cutting greenhouse gases as well. So I absolutely commit to ensuring that we have a really working transit system.
Same question to Kaitlyn Tremblay of the Green Party. The Ottawa region has had its fair share of difficulties with their public transit master plan, specifically the LRT. Regardless of what comes out of the provincial inquiry, will you help ensure residents get a system they can rely on?
Yes, thank you. The Green Party wants to be able to provide for Ontarians. Our society currently and our communities are built around the ability to have transport, whether that be cars, buses, trains. These are things that Canadians and Ontarians need to be able to get around. What the Green Party wants to do is end urban sprawl. So we want 15-minute communities. We want to cut down on commute time in general. We want you to be able to access work, access essential services, access recreational activities, all within 15 minutes of your home. This is something Ontarians deserve. I personally take a bus as well as the train system to get to work every day. I understand the commute times like no other. This is something that we can do. We can manage this, and we will fight for this and work with municipalities to ensure that Ontarians have accessible services.
It is now time for our closing statements. Each candidate will get 60 seconds, and we will do that in reverse alphabetical order. We start with Tyler Watt of the Liberal Party. You have 60 seconds.
Wonderful. I've been knocking on doors and making calls to people in Nepean for well over a year now, in between my shifts as a nurse at the hospital and also in the community administrating vaccines. Although I am passionate about healthcare and social issues, I wanted to listen and learn from as many people in this riding as I could. That way I can truly represent the voices of everyone at Ontario's legislature. By electing me, you'll be getting a progressive MPP with a positive vision for our riding and this province. It is an honor and a privilege to even receive one vote, let alone be elected. As your MPP, I will work tirelessly to get things done that matter the most to you in Nepean. The job of our government is to improve people's lives and be there to help. I will be that person who delivers for you. So thank you for joining me today, and I hope that I can count on your vote on June 2nd.
Kaitlyn Tremblay of the Green Party, it is time for your closing statement. You have 60 seconds.
Thank you so much. I won't lie to you, these last few years have been exceedingly difficult. We have a long road ahead of us to repair the damage wrought. However, within this lies an opportunity to rebuild our ways of life, our institutions, and our relationships. These last few years have forced people to look up, to see the writing on the walls and pain in each other's faces. It's forced us to see the way in which equity-deserving groups, the elderly, and the youth are consistently left behind and our climate taken advantage of. Many problems we face now in Nepean and across the world are a direct result of our communities hurting. But it also presents us with an opportunity to heal wounds that were ignored and never healed. Regardless of who you decide to vote for in Nepean, I urge you to demand better from your government and from your neighbours. I hope that regardless of it, I have convinced you to vote Green, that I have convinced you to take action. If you wish to elect a party whose policies are well-informed, whose leaders are driven by compassion, and whose actions benefit Ontarians long-term, then vote Green.
Brian Double of the NDP, you have 60 seconds for your closing statement.
Thanks so much for this opportunity. This has been great speaking with you and answering these questions. As I mentioned at the start, I think the cost of living is the most important aspect for Nepeanites. So I will take action to reduce that. So I will ensure that people can afford affordable housing. I will ensure that healthcare, which includes pharmacare, mental health, dental care, it's paid for with an OHIP card and not a credit card. I will help implement the $10 a day childcare plan, which is make sure that it is implemented quickly and effectively. I am confident, despite this being my first foray into politics, that I can represent the people of Nepean at Queen's Park and ensure a really positive outcome for the residents. Thank you for your time.
Thanks very much to all of our candidates for joining us today. We appreciate your time, and of course, we appreciate you, the viewer, for tuning in. We encourage you, of course, to vote and to tune in to our in-depth coverage right here on Rogers TV on election night.